All right. How's everybody doing? So it looks like, let's see, make sure it's coming on and that the video is in the correct orientation. Looks like it on here. Oh, good. All right. And it looks like it on the video. Excellent. So I want to welcome everybody to Paint with Lovejoy. Thanks so much for joining me today. And after yesterday's video, doing this kind of vantage point seemed to be a lot better to be able to follow along with the steps for the painting. So I'm going to stick with this kind of from here on out. And as you can tell today, we are doing the Frida Kahlo painting, and I'm going to recreate the one that's already on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to change colors and I'm going to be using a palette knife to paint a good majority of this. So for this particular painting, the image that you see already on my panel, you have a couple of options at home. You can either pause the video right here, draw what you see on the screen, and then draw that on your canvas, which is actually the option I recommend. Or for my first time painters, if you want to look at the links below in the description box, there is a link to a place where you can acquire traceables. And a traceable is a way for you to get your initial image on your canvas. And you do need carbon paper for that. So basically you'll have your traceable and then your carbon paper, and you use pressure to be able to get your image on your canvas. And like I said, for my first time painters, it's a really nice way for you to get your initial composition on your canvas. All right, so what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be using the palette knife, and I'm going to be doing my scraping method for this. And I will be changing colors. I think we're going to do a blue and teal background. I'm going to give Frida a purple cloak. I might do multiple colored flowers or stick with just the roses, and then definitely keeping with her black hair and her black little unibrow. So at home, you are more than welcome to switch out colors, maybe combine the videos, do something different. This is one of my more popular videos, so I've seen a lot of student photos, and I think one of my favorite ones was a pirate Frida, to where they gave her an eye patch, and it turned out really cool. But make your Frida your own. So with the palette knife, this one's actually my favorite knife, and like I said, this is what I create my artwork with. And I do a scraping method, so I'm going to be using the long edge and kind of using some pressure and scraping against the panel. I'm not applying paint super thick, and we're going to build a few layers. You also have a short edge right here and a little tip, and then you can see that I have a few other different shaped palette knives. And these smaller ones are going to help me get into smaller little nooks and crannies around the painting. But each one of you will kind of find your own way to deal with and hold the palette knife. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and move right into the background. And I'm going to grab that blue paint, and I kind of put a little on there. And then I like to kind of put my fingers right here for a bit of pressure and support. And then kind of from these outlines, we're going to be going from here to the edge of the panel. And as you can see, I am kind of scraping with some pressure, so that way I'm not applying the paint super thick. And given current circumstances and just the fact that we have some anxiety, this is a very stress relieving method for painting. And I'm going to keep my canvas in the same kind of orientation since I'm filming it. But at home, if you need to turn your canvas sideways, if you need to turn it upside down, so that way you can get into little spaces, feel free to move your canvas for what you need. And should you overlap anything today, like I just did on that earring, don't freak out, just take a deep breath. Our paint dries pretty quickly, and you can scrape a new color or paint a new color on top of it. And with that being said, if you are holding your breath right now, take a big inhale and just relax. This is just painting. It is not the end of the world, and hopefully it is a nice escape from current circumstances and our current reality. So as I'm filling up the background, like I said earlier, you can see where I've overlapped some areas. Don't stress about it. I like this palette knife style because it is so stress relieving, and it's also considered a sloppy painting style. And I personally like that just because then I don't have to be a perfectionist or have to get everything perfect. So if you are one of my perfectionist or type A personalities, this is a really good painting method just to kind of get you out of your comfort zone and realize that, hey, it's actually kind of fun to be a little sloppy sometimes. Maybe not in your profession, but in the art world or during your creative time, a little bit of sloppiness is called style and awesome expression. All right, and even just the sound I find very relaxing, and I know a few of my other students have mentioned just how nice it is to hear this sound. All right, so kind of got their background filled in, and you don't have to fill in every single space. And then when you are done, I'm going to take that paint. I'm actually going to wipe it off, so I'm cleaning the brush or cleaning the knife. And then let's see, let's give her a purple cloak, and I am going to move down to one of the smaller knives. And if you're purchasing palette knives, like I said, my go-to one is generally this knife. But if you go to the art store, you're actually going to see so many shapes and varieties of palette knives. Try a bunch of different ones. Trust your instincts as to, sorry, just lost my train of thought. Trust your instincts as to which shape you feel you might like and give it a try, and then maybe try something different. And I am actually not using heavy body paint right now. I am using my student grade paint. My channel is geared towards first time and beginner painters. So I don't want you investing a whole lot of money into your paint until you've decided that this is something you really enjoy doing. So as you get a little bit more comfortable, maybe step up to your artist grade paint, try the soft body, and if you really get into palette knife painting, yes, you do want to move into the heavy body paint. And the heavy body paint is going to be very beneficial for when you're doing what we call more impasto style painting, where you're going to put it on really thick and just kind of like icing a cake, manipulate the paint on top of it. I'm using a bit more of the scraping method, and I actually like the student grade paint for this because of the transparency. Because if I layer a bunch of colors on here, I like having the transparency of being able to see some of the colors underneath. But again, you play and find what works for you. All right, let's see. I'm actually going to go ahead and take a little bit of black, and we're going to get the base of her hair in. And I'm going to each section and basically putting on my first color, and then we'll be layering other colors on top of it. And trying to make sure that my hand is not always in the way as we're doing this. So if you're catching the replay, feel free to pause the video at any point so you can observe what I've added on the canvas. And you don't have to create what I do 100% identical. Just kind of use it as a base guideline as you're creating your image. And again, if you happen to go outside the lines, don't stress about it. Staying inside the lines is a little overrated. And I do encourage all my students to embrace their inner kindergartner when you're painting with me, and enjoy. If you do happen to get some paint where you don't want it, just wipe it off, or take a paper towel and wipe it off, and then you can apply your new color. All right. So I'm going to fill in a little bit of her unibrow. And the palette knife painting, especially for this kind of scraping style, it kind of puts you in the moment. It makes you kind of slow down a little bit, especially when you're kind of scraping into these really small areas. And just kind of, like I said, just keeps you in the moment, and hopefully you get to kind of forget about certain things that are going on in your life or in the world for just a short amount of time. All right. So let's see, I'm actually going to go back. We're going to be going back and forth because normally when I would do this style, I would let each of my layers dry, and then I'd go back and put another layer on top of it. But given that this is a live demo and I am trying to keep it at about 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to move a little bit quicker. So I did grab that teal, and I'm scraping right on top of the blue I already put on there. And you will notice that it changes the teal color slightly. And with enough pressure, you can see some of the blue underneath, and just kind of play with you know, what it looks like scraping this color on top of another color. And if you would like to see my paintings that I do in this style, my website is lovejoycreations.com. You can type that in and then head over to my store portfolio, and you can see a bunch of paintings in this style. And I've been doing this style, oh my gosh, probably about 15, 20 years now. And on my paintings that you'll see on my website, those paintings have over 100 layers of paint scraped on top of them. So just kind of take a look at it and realize that you can layer acrylic paint like crazy. For today's video, we'll probably get to maybe 4 to 5, maybe 10 layers of paint on here. Okay, so, and if you're used to some of my other videos, I recommend taking progress photos. So at different points when you complete a section, get in the habit of taking that progress photo. So right now, we're actually going to kind of put her skin tone in here, and you can adjust the skin tone of your Frida to be any color you want. Even if you want to go kind of a crazy non-human color, if you want to make her green or purple or blue, go for it. And no matter what you paint today, please send me a picture of what you create. I really enjoy seeing those. So to create kind of a light skin tone, I'm grabbing some of that raw sienna. I'm going to put it over with the white and mix it in, and I'm going for a really light tan. Like I said, if you want to change the color, the skin tone of your Frida, go right ahead. If you want a bit more pinkish, you can add a tiny amount of red to your mixture, but remember that little bit of red goes a long way. And if you're looking for more tan or a darker skin color, you can use a bit more of the raw sienna and possibly some burnt sienna, which is a bit of a reddish brown. But again, play with what you want for your painting. All right, and I hope everybody's doing well today, and hopefully not watching the news too much or finding your way through all current circumstances. All right. So as you're doing the skin tone on Frida, you're actually going to notice that I will overlap probably the lips, and I will overlap that jawline. Again, don't stress out if you end up getting paint in a place that you don't want it. A lot of times we work that into the design, and like Bob Ross coined very nicely, we call them happy accidents. And again, as you're moving into different little spaces, and your paint is still wet, you do want to be very conscious as you are approaching those colors with the knife, especially so you don't pull that darker black from the eyebrow into the face colors. If you happen to do that, just take a paper towel, wipe off that area, and reapply your skin tone. All right. Cool. Hi, Pat and Jen. Thanks for leaving comments. Glad you guys like the colors. And Pat, thanks for asking about the paint earlier. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to shoot them down there. And with this method of the viewpoint of the painting, it is easier for me to answer questions and kind of paint along. All right. And now getting into kind of some tiny, tight spaces. Remember to breathe. If you're finding that maybe you're a little shaky as you are touching your knife or your brush to the canvas, I've found that if you exhale as you touch the canvas, it makes it a little bit easier. But it is not to your benefit to hold your breath. And even I find myself doing that too. So a lot of times when I realize I'm holding my breath during the demo, that's when I tell you guys to breathe as well. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna, let me get those ears in there. I think I forgot those on the video and had to go back and do them on the original video. All right. And when you're getting into smaller spaces, sometimes just using the tip end of the knife, and you're just kind of scraping it, pulling it along. And I really like painting with the knife just because it is so untraditional, and it has kept me relatively stress-free during my life with this type of outlet for myself. All right, so again, I'm wiping that brush off. We're gonna make a light pink for each of our flowers for kind of the base, and then we'll load our other colors on top of that. So same thing with making that raw sienna. I'm gonna pull some white, put it over here, a little bit more. Whoops, not that much. And again, a tiny amount of red goes a long way to make our shade of pink. And if you want to make, I'm going to make all these flowers the light pink with darker red, but if you want to make each flower a different color, go right ahead and do that. Frida was pretty awesome with the amount of flowers and the style that she had, let alone just the artwork that she created. And like I said earlier, this video is one of my more popular ones on this channel, and I have thoroughly enjoyed all the various designs that Frida has gone through. And again, if you need to rotate your canvas, if I was not filming this, I'd be flipping it around to make it easier to get to that top. And kind of embracing what we call a happy accident. Some of that blue that's overlapped, I'm just gonna kind of work that into the flowers. And I'm actually gonna wipe my knife off. I'm gonna scrape some of that off so it's not so much. And we're gonna pull a little bit of that blue, almost as if it's making a shadow with some of these other flowers that overlap. And again, as you're doing this, trust your instincts. Your instincts are naturally pushing you in the direction you need to go. And even if it deviates from what I may be talking about or what I recommend, go ahead, trust what you need to do for you. This is just painting, and it is not the end of the world. All right, I'm actually gonna make a little bit more of that white, that pink, and put it on that one flower, a little bit more heavy-handed. There we go. And then now I'm actually gonna take that red, get some of the first couple layers on her lips. And again, for this one, if you overlap the space, you can actually use your knife to kind of scrape up that excess or wipe it off with a paper towel. And when we do our black outline at the end, the lips and the face and everything will stand out a little bit more. All right, so at this point, this is what we call our underpainting. And a good place to take a progress photo, I'm gonna actually jump back to each of these sections and put a second layer on. So in the background, and I'll probably stick with the same knife, I'm gonna take some of that white and we're gonna scrape it on top right here. And again, you'll notice if your paint is still wet that it does kind of mix with the color underneath, so it's mixing with some of that teal, and just embrace that. If you let this fully dry and then you add your white will stay more white. It will not blend with the underneath colors once the paint is wet, dry. Sorry. So again, only when the paint underneath is wet does it mix with the color that you are adding to it. And as you're doing some of these, I highly recommend that you get out of your chair, look at your painting from about 3 to 5 feet away, and notice what it looks like from that distance. And it is gonna look different compared to 2 feet in front of you while you're creating your painting. And like I said, I want you to get in the habit of doing that because it looks different, and then that way you can assess what you need to adjust and change on your painting. And don't be upset if you like your painting more from that distance compared to 2 feet in front of your face, because no matter what, everything in life looks better from a distance. Artwork, there's no avoiding it in artwork. All right. And I think I'm gonna actually go back to the blue, go a little bit darker in the background behind her shoulders. And again, totally okay if you overlap into the cloak. We will be adding some blue in there to put some shadow on it. Nice. Hey Shannon, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Appreciate all the support from everybody, especially during this time. This is definitely pushing my business in a brand new direction, actually, because my studio classes are canceled till further notice, and likely I will be vacating my San Diego studio and focusing more just online. All right. And as you're doing this, if you're kind of inclined to maybe apply that paint a little bit thicker compared to the scraping method that I'm doing, again, trust your instincts and do what you feel like doing for this creative session. Put a little bit more and a little more shadow behind her ears. And how many of you are actually painting at home while you have to stay at home? I hope you are, since that means you're on the video watching this. But as inconvenient as it is to do all this stay at home, I am really happy to see so many people painting and turning to creative outlets. All right, so background's not too bad. We may go back to it at another color or another time. So now I'm actually still sticking with that blue, and we're going to put a little bit of shadow on Frida's cloak. So I'm kind of keeping it close to kind of where her chest is and overlapping. And if you end up liking that color, you can scrape it on there on top of the purple even more. And I did get a little bit of that into my skin tone, so I'm going to go back with a clean knife, scrape that off, and we'll be putting a little more shadows on there. So again, as you need to avoid certain colors, move your canvas, move your knife in the direction that is appropriate for what you need to accomplish. And same if you feel like finger painting for any of my videos. And with that being said, any of my videos on my channel, you do not have to do it with just painting. If you want to use crayons, markers, colored pencils, anything, just use the video as a base and utilize the tools that you have at your disposal or at your house. All right, so on the cloak, I'm actually going to put a little bit of a highlight. So I'm cleaning the knife off, going back to the white paint, and kind of on where the shoulders are, we're going to scrape some of that light, the white on there, and it is going to change because my paint is still wet. All right. Wiping it off again. All right, and now we're actually going to go back to that skin tone. I'm going to put more white on my plate first. There we go. And we're going to go a little bit darker, and we're going to give a slight shadow underneath that chin, and maybe a little bit kind of where the ears are meeting the head. So again, you may have to mix that color a second time compared to when you made it the first time. And I want you to go just maybe 2 shades darker than what you did for the skin tone. And that looks close to my skin tone, so I'm adding a little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. And if you happen to get to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I went too dark, that's all right. Because again, with this scraping method, it's not fully opaque because of the scraping method. So kind of following that chin line and up kind of underneath the ears next to those earrings, we're going to scrape on this darker color. And if you even feel like kind of finger painting, moving the paint with your hands, go right ahead and do that. All right, and I am kind of keeping it the shade just underneath the chin, and then like I said, we're going to put a little bit next to the ears where the ears are meeting the head. Nice. And let's see, maybe a little bit kind of where the cheekbones would be, because those are generally a little bit darker. And if you feel like putting makeup or eyeballs on your Frida, I've had a few students that have done that, feel free to adjust your Frida. And just a little bit kind of at the hairline. Remember to breathe. Just the fact that you're painting makes you already successful. And all right, I'm actually looking at it, what it looks like on screen. Okay, it is taking shape nicely. She's forming, and I do tell all my students that you guys are magicians because you're creating the illusion of a 3D object on a flat 2D surface. All right, so we're gonna make now a darker pink, going back to the flowers. So you can kind of see how I'm just kind of switching around to different spots, giving other areas a little bit of time to dry before I put another layer on. So again, with this pink, it's gonna be a little bit darker than your first shade of pink. And I'm gonna keep these a little bit in the center. And this, I'm actually applying a little bit thicker. I'm not doing the scraping method as much. And if you notice that maybe you apply your color on there and you go, oh, maybe it's not the right color, go ahead and adjust. So I'm actually gonna make my pink a little bit darker than what I just applied. I want a little bit more contrast on my flowers. All right. There we go. And again, I am applying this a little bit thicker, a bit more kind of impasto style. So give that a go. And if you are doing this with your student grade paints, they're not going to stay thick and keep all that texture. They will start to flatten a little bit as they dry. So that's why it is nice when you buy the heavy body paints, they're going to keep their form and their structure, but they're also going to be a lot more expensive. All right. Wiping the knife off again. Okay, so let's see. Oh, we've got to give her some earrings. And I did like the yellow earrings, so I'm going to add some yellow onto here. And I think we'll give her hair one more coat of black. And then I should be putting the flowers in the background in impasto style. All right. So again, with those earrings, a little bit thicker paint. And I'm not really touching the canvas with my knife. I'm placing the paint on top of it. Because when I touch the knife to the canvas, that's where those scraping and texture marks kind of come in. So now for these, and when we do the flowers in the background, we're just basically placing the paint on top of it. And again, remember to breathe. I just realized I was holding my breath as I was doing this. All right. So again, cleaning that knife off, I'm going back to the black paint. I'm gonna put one more coat on the hair, give her a little bit thicker, fuller hair. And again, I think I had a student give her red hair one time, somebody else gave her brown, but switch it to whatever you want. And as you're adding your second and third layers, if you are more inclined to apply it thicker for more opaque coverage, go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's see. I still want that background to dry just a little bit more because especially this part right here is still pretty wet. So I think while we're waiting for that, I am going to move to the brush and I'm going to do a few black outlines. So using that small pointy brush, I'm going to outline her cloak. I'm going to skip outlining the jawline because I like just a little bit that I can see through that. Probably outline the ears, and we will save the flowers until after they dry a little bit more. So again, using that pointy brush, I did have a touch of water on my brush, but again, you never want your brush dripping wet. And we're gonna be going over the perimeter of the cloak. And again, I am applying that a little bit thicker, overlapping a touch of the background and a touch of the design of Frida's cloak. And this does help kind of give it a bit of a pop art feel. And it does kind of, if you're not sure where some of the lines go, you can reference that traceable again. And especially as you're doing these, remember to breathe. You want to concentrate and hold your breath, but that is not going to help. And again, breathing as you touch the brush to the canvas. All right, let's get her ear outline. I do, if you have the time at home, I actually recommend that you waiting until everything dries before you do your outlines. Just makes it a little bit easier on you. All right. And I did wipe off all the paint to bring the bristles together so I can do a smaller line for the lips. All right, and again, I was holding my breath. Does make me a little nervous to be doing live videos, but with each one, I get more and more comfortable. So I appreciate you guys being here for the beginning stages as I find my way through this. And I'm just cleaning up a little bit of Frida's unibrow, because that is one of her iconic signature symbols, I guess, characteristics. All right. So we're actually going to let the flowers dry before I add any of those details. And actually, I'm going to clean the brush. I'm going to do one little highlight of white on the lips with the brush, just because it's a little bit easier. Then we're going to move into back to the knife and put the flowers in the background. So with the brush, on the bottom lip, kind of where the bottom lip meets the top lip, we're going to put a little bit of a highlight. And then on the top lip, on that left-hand side, putting another slight highlight. And again, just a hint to indicate where our light source is coming from. All right, so for our flowers, we're going to basically make blobs. And I'll probably have to grab more paint. And if you want to do different colored flowers in the background, go right ahead. Make them whatever you want. I did have somebody attach fake flowers to their painting, and it turned out really cool. All right, so I'm again imagining that it's a blob. I'm making circles. Let me stand up for this. There we go. And I like it, it keeps turning into a heart shape. Let's do another one up here. All right, so yeah, if you can kind of get enough on your knife, you can just kind of place it on there, and this is where I really feel like I'm almost icing a cake as this comes along. And I'm just kind of overlapping 3 circles. We're going to put a darker pink in the center of these. Imagining that they're just blobs of cherry blossoms. Grab some more paint. And I do have a few of them that usually kind of go off the edge of the canvas, and this gives the indication that we have so much more happening than what is captured on the canvas. And as you step away from the canvas, as you're seeing these blobs, once we put the center and the leaves kind of around them, then you're like, oh, that's a flower. Right now, they definitely look like blobs. This is why we practice at home. Let's see, let's have a little flower hanging out behind Frida. And if you're painting at home and you do actually have the heavy body paints, this would be the place that you would switch over to paint with the heavy bodies. You'll actually notice a big difference in the application, and it is much nicer than trying to do it with the student grade paint. All right, so I'm actually going to go back to that pink. We're going to go ahead and just put some blobs in there as well. Get rid of that, whatever that hard thing is in there. There we go. All right, very impressionistic style when you paint with the knife, which makes it a lot of fun. Let's see, a little one here, a little one over there. All right. And if you do feel like moving back and using your brush for this, again, like I said, adjust what you need to do for your painting. I'm going to throw some green on here, and we'll do a few of those leaves. And we're running out of space, but half the time, sometimes the palettes look cooler at the end after all the paint's mixed on them. All right, I'm actually going to mix that green and yellow. So just even plain, grab some of that yellow, grab some of that green, and then we'll try putting a blob for a leaf on there. And again, just trying new things, stepping out of your comfort zone. And I am adding the yellow to the green just so it stands out a little bit more from the kind of a darker background. And don't try to overthink this process. Just kind of react, add a few, move on to something else. Because when we overthink things in, especially creativity, kind of end up missing the point and the randomness of the cool things that happened. So especially as you're beginning, be kind to yourself. Try not to judge yourself too harshly because you are learning something new. And the more that you do it, the more comfortable it gets. And the more your brain's like, all right, I know how to do this. I've done it 4 or 5 times now. It's not so scary. All right. And definitely sloppy blobs as I'm looking at it. And again, given the current circumstances, sometimes we need to just get a little sloppy and expressive. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna, real quick before we finish here, right about 40 minutes, not bad. I'm gonna go with the black paint, and I'm gonna do a quick little, and the brush, quick little outlines and some stylized marks for those flowers. So again, the brush, black paint. I'm gonna just do kind of some wild little squiggle lines for the perimeter, for the outline of each flower. Again, that kind of helps separate it from the background, from the other flowers. And I am just kind of wiggling my brush around. Does not have to be perfect. Don't think too much. And this is better done when you're maybe not 2 inches in front of your canvas. Kind of step a foot away and hold your arm outright so that way you can get these little wiggle lines in there. All right, and I'm actually just going to clean up a little bit of the edge right there for her hair. All right. So not bad, you guys. That was a very quick painting, a good palette knife demo. Just as a reminder, anything that you see on my YouTube channel, you can use anything you have, crayons, markers, colored pencils, watercolors, or acrylic paint like I'm using. Again, please send me any of your pictures, anything that you do, paintwithlovejoy@gmail.com, or tag me. And if you are so inclined to financially help support Paint with Lovejoy, check out my Patreon page. There's going to be a link in the description box below, or actually jump over to my main website and purchase some artwork for your house. So thank you guys again for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. I am trying to do these every day at 11 o'clock, and we'll keep going as long as you guys show up and continue to support. So, any suggestions or comments that you want for me to paint stuff next week or in the future, please leave that in the comment box below. So until tomorrow, hope you guys have a great day. Cheers.